Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. We're gonna go live in a second. Today we're gonna talk about home buyer headaches, all the issues you kind of go through when you're trying to buy a house. So let's start this off. Bismillah. We have Muhammad Mumen joining us. He's actually one of my past clients who bought a house with me. I was his agent, and I'm gonna ask him a few questions that'll maybe give you guys some insight because usually you hear real estate agents talking about what really matters, what's important. So it kind of makes more sense to hear it from someone who actually went through the experience. Mumen, assalamu alaikum. How are you, man?
Hey, walaikum assalam. I'm good. I'm doing good. How about you?
Alhamdulillah, very good, man. Very good. So you want to kick things off? You have anything you want to share before we start?
No, I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Mumen. I'm an old friend of Saeed's and also one of his clients. And yeah, I think I'm from the Sterling Heights area, so grew up here in Michigan, so I know the area pretty well. Yeah.
Good, good. That's a good introduction, actually. Let's get right to it, man. I'm going to ask you questions. You take your time, you answer. We'll go from there. Question one, which is probably the question that is a standard question. When it comes to buying a house, a lot of people do home inspections. They go through the appraisal process, right? Not everyone knows what appraisal might refer to, but let me just cut to the chase. How did the inspection go for you, and how was the appraisal process? Did you see any red flags that made you reconsider the purchase? Anything like that?
So I think the appraisal process and the home inspection process went pretty smooth for me. I think the appraisal came back at like the offer that we put in. So we put it at 305, and then the appraisal came in at 305, and so I think that one went pretty good. I was already pretty happy with the house, and I thought it was worth the value that I was paying for. As far as like the inspection process, that one was kind of that was a little bit interesting in the sense that like the house was in like good condition, right? But the
Yes.
inspectors, they found that the furnace and AC were about like 20 years old. The roof was, I'm not sure how long ago that was, but it was older, and it had done repairs in prior years. So it hasn't been replaced recently. So those are like a lot of things that I feel like home buyers look for, like, hey, brand new AC, brand new, furnace, because those are like the big
Yes.
ticket items. But since I thought it was older, and we did talk to them about it, but they were still in good working condition, if that makes sense. Even though they're,
How about that house? We saw. Were there any houses where you were like, you know what? I remember there was a house you had regret on for not moving forward. Remember you liked that basement a lot.
oh,
Uh, the finished basement. I remember it was like a finished basement, but I
yeah,
think because of the price point, we didn't move forward with it, right? But
yeah.
go ahead.
No, no, yeah, yeah. That one, I remember that specifically. The furnace was ancient.
Yeah.
We did really like it, and we had it on. I think we had it, but I'm actually really glad that we didn't go with that.
Why
The
is that?
reason,
Why is that?
well, for example, it's not just because of the furnace and stuff like that. The house itself was great, but I think it was just way too small for me and my wife. I think it was around like 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. Right. The house was good. The house was actually within my budget as well, my initial budget, which was like, I think like around, I forget how much it was, but it was like 260 or something like that. And I wanted to my house to be around that price, right? But it was just way too small. And I look back and I'm like, 1,100 square feet. I didn't think that was going to be something that we'd be happy with, especially since I think we wanted to like stay in this house maybe for like at least 5 years, 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
that range. So I was really happy we didn't go through with that. Not just because of the furnace and things like that, but just because of the space.
So I got a question for one of the things you talked about. You were saying how buyers usually look for like newer roof, windows, furnace, water heater. From your experience, how common do you see that in the market for someone to say, you know what, I got to deal with all these new things? Is that common? Is that uncommon? What are your thoughts?
What do you mean by that? So like, what do you mean by like you got to deal with all these things? Like,
So
what do
like
you
like like the possibility. So for example, let's have a new buyer, right? And my expectations are I'm gonna get a house within my budget, right? And I'm gonna expect to have a new roof. I'm gonna expect to have all these new things, the high ticket items. How practical is it for me to plan like that if I'm a home buyer?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's probably not that practical to like want all this. I mean, of course you want to aim to like have everything that you want, everything on your checklist, but unfortunately, like when we first hit the market, there was this I guess idea that me and my wife had where we just wanted a move-in ready house. We didn't want to do anything, no painting, no nothing. We didn't, we wanted everything to be newer. If you want something like that, then it's going to come with a premium price tag. And we quickly realized that. I think like the first couple of houses that we've seen, there's like 30, 40 offers, goes way above asking. It's almost pretty much impossible to, get all those things. So you're going to have to compromise. And I think compromising is key.
I was smiling while you were saying all that. So I got another question on this follow up because you said that look at the first house you saw at the square footage. Hey, it was at the budget I wanted, 260. But then at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned that the house you got was at 305, right? How'd you go up 45,000? Like, what happened with that? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, yeah. So I think initially for us, for me personally, I wanted, it's especially with the high interest rates and things like that, I wanted like my monthly housing cost to be under like 30%. I think that's what I wanted, everything. So like taxes, insurance, and then the mortgage as well. And so like that was like my ideal situation. But after we've seen a couple of houses, I think like we've seen the stuff in our price range, and it just I felt like we wouldn't be comfortable, we wouldn't be happy. For me, like I don't like to deal with that much, debt. So I wanted to pay off the house as soon as possible, and so me and my wife, after talking about it, we thought like, okay, that'd be a good price range for us to finish off quickly. But then after we seen a couple, like you said, like it was the houses were too small for us. We just didn't feel comfortable with like living like that, and especially if we're going to plan to stay there for like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's a
that's
long
like,
term investment. Yeah.
yeah. So then the next thought we had, like, okay, I was like, okay, let me up my budget. I just thought like, you know what, it'll be kind of it won't be a stretch. But alhamdulillah, we're pretty good where we're at. But I'm counting on the interest rates to come down hopefully soon. I mean, I'm hoping that they come down, but if they don't, I mean, I guess we get a good rate because if the rates keep going higher, we got a pretty good rate at that point. So
Yeah.
either way, we kind of will be okay.
Yeah.
But that was like my ideal situation. But alhamdulillah, I think we made the right decision in moving our budget up so to get something that we'd be happy with, especially if we're
Yes.
going to be like 5, 10 years. So.
Good, good. And so let me ask you the next question. Not a follow-up, but a different question. When you're going through this whole process, right? Um, how does it feel? Like, what's the most frustrating part of the home buying process for you? Did you ever feel like you wanted to back out of the process?
Uh, yeah, I think like very early on, like as soon as we seen like a couple of houses that we really liked, especially some that were like really like move-in ready, we didn't have to touch anything. We put in we put in great offers. We put in maybe like 20, 30K over, appraisal gap guarantee. We did a lot of things and we put in strong offers and we just didn't get them. And so it was kind of like those kind of moments where we're kind of like frustrated. We're like, man, like we're trying to like not like get like emotionally connected to it, but like and I know there's like more houses and things like that coming, but like I remember just dealing with the amount of like people, especially with the high interest rates. We thought like coming in, it would be much more easier because higher interest rates by probably less buyers, but that wasn't the case, and that kind of really highly discouraged us. And I think we even took a couple of breaks, right? Like we took breaks on seeing houses. Working with you, that was pretty easy, right? We communicated that, and then we took a step back and thought about like, okay, what do we really want? What do we really care for? Like, do we really care about like, a really nice bathroom, or like, are we okay with getting something that we need to like maybe paint or fix up a little bit? So taking a step back and kind of taking a break, clearing our heads, and then coming back again really helped a lot, especially from all the discouragement that we faced.
I mean, you kind of said about the communication working with me. Was there any point where you were questioning, and this is a fair question to ask, like, hey, man, my me working with Said is probably not a good thing, or it is a good thing? Any situation where communication became an issue for you?
No, I think ultimately like it came down to like not getting pressured. That went a long way. Like we always felt comfortable. There wasn't any really big issues where we faced like none like all the houses that we weren't getting. It wasn't like your fault. If that makes sense. Like it's kind of just like the market. I mean, I understand like how the market is around our area. The rates, the lack of inventory, just all of that combination we kind of understood. So, but otherwise, like I think we had maybe like one or two houses like that we made offers on and we actually got, but we backed out no issues because we just didn't feel satisfied with our purchase. So, I think just being comfortable and not being pressured went a long way. I
Good.
don't think we ever faced a time where we wanted to not work with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes people do feel cornered, and I've had situations where I'm trying not to even apply pressure, but people still take it upon themselves because they can't help it. And this is, I think, that's probably one of the hardest part of me being an agent is how do I manage to make sure you don't feel pressured, right? Um, but Khair, thanks for that feedback. And I was going to ask this: when you were going through this whole process, um, did you feel like you knew what your next step was going to be? Like, did you feel like you were well informed about buying a house when you're working with me on this deal? Or did you feel like, oh, something new is coming up every single day? Because I've heard people saying that when they buy a house, they don't even know what's coming up next. How was your experience?
No, I think I was already pretty well informed. Like we had buyer consultation right in the beginning, so you went through all the steps with me right before we even started looking at houses and what to expect and things like that. So I was already pretty well informed. And this is like also not my first time for me personally. It's not my first time buying a home, so I kind of knew a little bit of like what was coming. Things did get a little bit different, I think, especially with the lender. I went with UIF, and I thought overall it was a good experience. But there were some surprises that came up from there that I didn't expect, and that was new for me. So other than that, I think I had the whole process down.
And that's basically my next question, right? What was your experience? I mean, you kind of gave some feedback working with me as an agent. What was your experience working with UIF or the lender overall and the title company? I mean, were there moments you were frustrated, you were thrown off? Talk us through that because people are actually expecting to understand that part too.
Yeah, no, I think working with UIF I think it's the same as like working with kind of any other bank. There's not that much difference, right? The same process. The only thing that I got surprised by, and I think it was like kind of unique to my situation, um, there's two things. One of them being like I bought a house on the same street as another property, as another property that my parents live in. So it's a few houses down, and I think the lender had issues saying like, "Hey, why are you buying another house? A little bit smaller house on the same street?" And they wanted some reasoning for that. And I think they even wanted some like they needed me to write a letter to say like, "Hey, this is they're both my properties. They're not investment properties because my parents are living in one, and then I'm going to be living in another." So that was kind of interesting because I didn't know why that was a concern to them. And the other house was paid off as well. So I showed them that as well. That was interesting. But and then the second part was I used to work for General Motors, and there was a strike with the union, the UAW strike, and that was going on in the news. And they came back to me even after I showed them all of my recent income and my pay stubs and all of that, which was standard, right? They came back and saying that like, hey, the strike is going on. Are you affected? And I was like, no, I'm a white collar worker. I'm not part of the union. I'm not affected. I'm still going to work. I'm still getting paid. But they were kind of pushing back, and they wanted me to reach out to HR and get a formal statement and things like that. And I think in the end we worked it out amongst ourselves. But yeah, there's that was kind of a surprise to me because that also kind of didn't make sense. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just being very, very strict now, especially, which may be a good thing. But yeah, those are the two surprises that came up with me. And other than that, everything else went pretty standard and went smooth. So
How about communication within yourself, the realtor, me, obviously, lender, right, and then title company? Any discrepancies? Anything that you could give people as an advice as a buyer?
yeah, I think as a buyer, like, yeah, like you have multiple people working on your file. The main thing is, like as a buyer, you should be proactive because this is like at the end of the day, you're buying this. This is your house that you're gonna be buying. They are, helping you to purchase this home, but you need to be like on top of your game. You need to be very like attentive to all the details, look through everything, make sure you get the proper documentation to your lender, making sure like, hey, did this get done? Like, if something happens where like the lender forgets something or loses your file or something like that, you might end up losing your dream house or the house that you really wanted, right? So unfortunately, sometimes, the people are human, people make mistakes, but you can do your part and make sure like, the process is going smoothly. Make sure you're in constant communication with the lender, the title company, your agent, always giving updates if anything happens, if you can't get anything on the right time. So I think you just got to be really proactive in that whole piece of it. If you're not reaching out and bugging them or bugging your lenders because they have hundreds of files, you're just
Yeah.
one file in that. So you got to be bugging them and making sure you're proactive in getting your file through to the end.
One of the things that I say to all of my buyers, and maybe I even told you this as well, is that, and this is advice for everybody, before you get approved by a lender, let's say you want to get approved by UIF or guidance. If I'm the home buyer, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to ask them, what is my expectation for our communication if I sign with you? Because UIF and guidance are competitors, right? Naturally. And I would ask this question to both of them. If I sign with you over guidance or if I sign with you over UIF, what is my expectation of communication? Because when you want to get pre-approved and they hear you're an engineer like yourself working at General Motors, like, oh yeah, we'll work on your file 100%. And then the file starts and then there could be some discrepancy in when they're actually showing up, when they're busy, because like you said, they have tens of files to work on, and they know that okay, I'll close Mumen end of September instead of beginning of September. It's still September, but for you, it's a big deal. Beginning of September and end of September is probably life changing for you. So that's one of the things I feel like mentioning to the, because the agent is locked in with you regardless, but
Yeah.
the lender, they're like, they could take a step back. Same thing with title company. Why choose them if they're not going to communicate? I don't know if you feel the same thing.
Yeah. If I'm not like getting constant updates, because yeah, it is a life changing, right? Like for example, like there are a lot of people that are probably selling their current home,
Yeah,
uh, purchase a new one, right? So that timing is going to be huge
it's
for
a
them.
big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah, timing, and especially if you're not closing on time, then you're homeless at one point, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's one of the things. Yeah, by default, what I do as an agent, and this is advice to the agents, is just once a day or once every other day, I'll just go on a group chat with myself, my buyer, and the lender, and I'll just tag them on WhatsApp or whatever it is and say, hey, are there any updates? Right now, here's the sad reality. The reality is that they are supposed to give me an update saying there's nothing being worked on or we're moving forward, but the lender doesn't. I haven't seen any lender who is actually proactive to letting me know until I ask as an agent, which is not my job, but I think it helps the buyer and everybody else move things along. So if you're an agent, I would recommend you just send a text every day or every other day just to see how things are moving. But okay, I'm gonna go to the last question, Movement, which is just looking back at everything, right? You went through this whole home buying process. You have a home now, alhamdulillah. First of all, let me ask you, how are you finding your current house? Is everything good with the house?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I think it's been exactly a year, and I haven't had any issues. I think first, we didn't have any regrets. I think, alhamdulillah, we were actually really happy with this home. The biggest reason why is we were able to get this house on the same block as my parents. And for me, I need to be around my parents and help my parents out, and being on the same block is a huge blessing, very convenient for me, and just the house itself. Like we never had to do any like major renovations. Only thing we kind of had to do some cosmetic work, like we had to paint. We redid some of the floors, and that was it. Kitchen was great, bathroom was great, the space was great. And I think you mentioned like if I had any regrets with this home.
Yeah, but that would be like when you're looking back, is there anything you wish you had done differently, whether it's picking this house or going through with the process, starting earlier, paying a different amount, I don't know, negotiation, whatever it is?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think like I wish I had started earlier. I think like we took almost a year, maybe a year, to buy this home, and I feel like maybe if I got a little bit more aggressive earlier, when rates were just a little bit lower, that would have been ideal. Obviously, also I think for me, like I know we were talking about space, and I got a 3 bedroom house. I think even a couple of times throughout our process, I was looking at 4 bedrooms. And I kind of went back and forth. All right. But I think if I had gone back, I think I would have looked for a 4 bedroom house just so like maybe I could have stayed a little bit more long term, maybe. But overall, other than those issues, I think it was the perfect timing for me. I got the house in the great location, at a good price in Sterling Heights. So overall, I think I didn't have, yeah, I don't, for me, I never had any buyer's remorse.
That's a good way to put it. Alhamdulillah. Okay, I mean that's pretty much the main questions I wanted to ask. Do you feel like there's anything else that you could give as advice to anyone trying to buy a house? Like if someone's trying to buy a house right now, you bought your house a year ago, you just said that, right? So market is pretty much similar. The only thing to expect is maybe the rates might go down next month, which is well next tomorrow, right? Next week. That's expected. But if someone is trying to buy a house, let's say this month, and they contact me, what do you think should be their first few steps before you wrap this up?
Um, I think the first few things is like for sure go through like the buyer consultation, talk to your agent if they go with you or somebody else, whoever it is. Like learn the market. Like you said, rates are going down, but doesn't mean like inventory's up or things like that. So I kind of understand like what the market is like, what to expect. You don't want to get discouraged right away, right? So you make offer on your house and you didn't know the market, so you lose out on it, right? So you kind of get discouraged. So I think to avoid that, learn, talk to your agent, see how the market is, get all of your, finances in order, like see how much what you want to look at, how much you want to go, the max, the minimum, what you want. So get all that sorted out. Try to figure out, like start talking to a lender, that's one other thing that I would have probably done is like talk to multiple lenders. That would have been better. I feel like, interview multiple lenders and go with, what you feel is best. Maybe even look at rates and see who gives you the best rate. So those are a couple of things that I feel like if you're going to enter the market right now, those are some of the things that you should probably check out for sure.
100%, man, 100%. Anyway, those are perfect sets of advices. We're gonna make clips of this and broadcast it for everyone to see, inshallah. I want to thank you for making time for this interview, man. Jazakallah khair. I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, if you have anything to comment, or if you're confused by anything Mumen said, drop it in the comment and I'll address it, inshallah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.